Mr. Kushagra Juneja is Managing Partner of Design to Occupancy Services LLP, operating internationally. Mr. Kushagra is BE certified ECBC Master Trainer. He is also certified as LED AP and IGBC AP and GRIHA Trainer and Evaluator. His expertise includes sustainability in built environment, energy efficiency, green buildings, and mechanical design services. He has worked with multiple state governments to implement ECBC and their sustainability project in built environment. Mr. Kushagra received Rajasthan Energy Conservation Award. He is the advisor to GEM National Council for ASSOCHAM. He also serves as the Vice President of India Building Performance Simulation Association. Internationally, he has worked on several assignments. Today, Mr. Juneja will talk about policy infrastructure to support efficient cooling.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Thermal Control Magazine, giving me this opportunity to interact with such august audience and be a part of the panel that is equally immaculate. The coverage of cooling right now in the country is really low at about 5%. And it's only poised to grow. It's not going to go down, and with the increasing per capita income, with the increasing access to cooling, with the increasing change in climate, this is only going to go up. Cooling, I would say, is not limited to buildings, though buildings play a very, very crucial role, like Deepankarji and Shrutiji highlighted. But cooling now, because earlier we as a society were used to eat very fresh and seasonal stuff, and all that is very rapidly changing with the introduction and fast spread of cold storages, and even the pharmaceutical industry uses a lot of cooling, and the growth of vaccinations, especially after COVID-19, that side of cooling has also increased. And even facilities that don't require cooling as a process, maybe in fact even data centers for that matter, are growing by leaps and bounds. And we had a IT ruling which said that the companies that are operating in India are supposed to store their data in India, and that has been complied with. So a lot of data centers have come up in the past. So all this includes cooling, but there are also non-focus sectors such as MSMEs and industries which do not use cooling as a process, but the cooling definitely is a part of their operation, their process. They have an office building or some part where they're using a cooling mechanism to cool some part of the process, but the process entirely is not dependent on the cooling. So the cooling is, I think, a very broad thing now, and comfort is a very broad thing now. And since it's accessible, since the costs have come down, and Deepankarji was mentioning that COPs of as high as 7 are available, and people are aware. One thing I think about India is the adaptation is really, really fast. So a lot of technologies come to light and they get adapted really fast. So one example of that is VRF systems, water-cooled systems. All of that has been really, really adopted fast. But a lot of role to play in this is the government's role, where government has done really a lot. And Shrutiji was highlighting the ECBC code and how it has changed and what can be done to passively design buildings. But also at the international level, if we compare ourselves, one, obviously the frugal approach and penny-wise approach of the Indian society as such has been a really beneficial thing to our entire gamut of efficiency. So we could have a lot of people can afford cooling, but still you'll see our houses, even people who can afford, rarely build a very centrally air conditioned house. You'll still see individually plugged in air conditioners which are switched on as and when they are needed. But at the same time, a lot of things such as insulation are oftentimes missed out, because if you see in an American home or a Canadian home which goes through sub-zero temperatures in the winters, you will see a lot of their houses are ventilated, so the requirement for heating, a lot of their houses are insulated, so the requirement of heating kind of goes down. So those kind of things, because we are a very sensitive economy to the initial capital cost. So those kind of things take time in our society to kind of make their way. So another very important aspect to reducing cooling and to achieve the mandate of India Cooling Action Plan is also to maneuver the behavioral change. to maneuver how we behave as a society and not at an individual level. So insulation is one such aspect which obviously needs a capital investment, but it will pay you off throughout your life cycle. And obviously, when we talk about implementing cooling in our household, especially at a very piecemeal level where we are putting in air conditioners at a room level and then we are using them, it will also help us be more comfortable and get out of our quilts easily in peak winters as well, because you'll oftentimes find people who find it difficult to get out their quilt in the morning, but insulation can easily address that problem. Obviously, heating is rarely used, especially in the composite climate that I stay in and a lot of other climate zones as well. So I think government has already done a lot, and 2007 is when the ECBC was introduced, 2017 is when the revised ECBC was introduced, and I'm happy to share that the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is already working on ECSBC, which is the Energy Conservation and Sustainability Building Code, which will be the next version of ECBC. And they're already working on it. The timeline is about a year from now. And as many as 1 lakh simulations are being carried out to ascertain what sustainability parameters, because we have a lot of green building rating systems in the country now, and a lot of times people face that, how do we comply with ECBC and then pay for separate compliance for a green building rating system, and then there's some other system. So we is trying to do their bit and integrate that. So as far as planning is concerned, also cooling is a major part of the action plans that are being prepared. So the Ministry of Environment in each state prepares a climate action plan, which was, I think, initially released in 2014. And now the revised climate action plans have been released in the last couple of years in different states. Again, energy efficiency action plans are being worked upon in Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and it's initiated by Ministry of Power, Government of India, where energy efficiency is the core focus. And energy efficiency, when I talk about energy efficiency, cooling forms a very large part whenever a couple of sectors. Dipankar sir was also traveling in a car, and car cooling is also going to be a major consumer, because right now 75% of our vehicles are two-wheelers. So check out, so one very good thing again on the government part is a lot of data is now available. So you can check out the data of Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and there's a dashboard called Vahan Dashboard. And you will see how many two-wheelers are registered, how many four-wheelers are registered, how many were registered last year vis-a-vis the year before. And you can see yourself that how many two-wheelers we have versus the population versus how many four-wheelers we have in our state. And you will see that as we grow as a society, as we grow to be more prosperous, as people have more money, more purchasing power, they'll also buy more vehicles. And then obviously car cooling or vehicle cooling is also going to be another area. So all these things are being addressed in the State Energy Efficiency Action Plan. Again, at the state level, now Bureau of Energy Efficiency is also working with a lot of donor agencies like UN agencies and German agencies, etc., etc. And another energy transition action plan is being developed, where how to transit into a more renewable kind of energy is being considered, where even options like district cooling, I think Gujarat, Gift City is one example of district cooling, which is more efficient than obviously a piecemeal cooling. So those kind of things are also being worked out, and I'm really happy to share that the transition of a district cooling system was very smooth, and we can very easily see an example in the Gift City. And I'm sure, if not in the form of a larger infrastructure like Gift City, I'm sure in a smaller format like townships and microgrid for thermal cooling, all of these are being considered already, especially in places like Ladakh, where grid access is still limited. Bureau of Energy Efficiency, again with an agency, is trying to develop, and I wrote this in the answer also to the question that was asked, that a standard is being tried to develop for cold storages, cold rooms and cold room compressors. And once a standard is in place, then it will be easy for manufacturers and industrialists who are operating these cool rooms to actually categorize on what efficiency they are operating. And the idea is just to make it simple to compare and contrast that what is their current efficiency vis-a-vis what can be achieved. So another initiative is the creation of a facilitation center, where financing is being promoted at a very massive level, and industries including cooling solutions, are being invited to propose their project which they want investment in, and then state level committees, financial committees, including all major banks, have been formed or are in the process of being formed. And those committees will ensure that energy efficiency is considered as a viable investment option. Like if you go to buy a house, some valuer will come to your house and tell that, this is a value, you can mortgage this house and take a loan. But similarly, if you want to replace your chiller system, it's a little difficult. Or if you want to replace your motor system, it's a little difficult. So that is also another roadblock which was there in financing of energy efficiency equipment and retrofits. So that is another roadblock that is being worked out. The success of PAT scheme is really marvelous for us as a country. So you would be really surprised that we already cover about 60% of industrial energy consumption in PAT scheme. All thermal power plants are covered, all discoms are covered, and a large consumption of industries is being covered. MSMEs are still, I'll talk about MSMEs separately, but a large part of that consumption is already covered in the PAT scheme. And very recently, buildings. So earlier it was just industries, but very recently buildings have also come in the purview of PAT scheme. So large hotels, large universities, all the airports, large hospitals, and so on have been covered in the PAT scheme. So PAT scheme typically ideates that about a 3 to 5% saving is envisaged every three years, and a compliance report is submitted to BE, and cap and trade mechanism was being discussed by Shruti ji, and that cap and trade mechanism. However, the trade part specifically has not been very successful with PAT till now. But already there are discussions ongoing to develop a separate structure for carbon markets of India, and how that exact carbon market trade will happen in our country and what credits will be allowed, etc. So that's a separate subject. But what I'm trying to say is, in the part of that industry, the cooling is covered to a very large extent. So the cooling action plan also talks about training about 1 lakh professionals, technicians in repair and maintenance of the equipment. And under the S&L program, Bureau of Energy Efficiency also conducts training not only for technicians but also retailers and all these people to make sure that the end customer is made to know all the benefits of what is being tried to be done. Obviously, enforcement becomes a challenge, and I'm sure we'll have to live with some challenges while we reap some other benefits. But those challenges are also slowly being mitigated. And I'm not a BE spokesperson, but we just work a lot with the Ministry of Power, and I really think that if all of us as a society know all these schemes, we can very effectively contribute into all this as a magazine, as a participant, or as professionals who are working in these industries. A lot of times, what is going to happen and what already is being done is unknown. So this is very important, that what is already in place. So similarly, MSME has a separate cell in Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and MSME facilitation, or if MSME wants to implement a particular scheme, and there was another scheme for rating of brick clusters. So a lot of these things are directly or indirectly related to cooling, because every industry today needs cooling. Every industry today requires cooling in some or the other form. Discoms, I should not forget. Discoms are playing a really important role, and especially the private discoms that have come in place in Delhi and the regions around are really playing a great role by introducing demand side measures, where they are offering consumers to replace existing, and when I say consumers, I mean even domestic consumers, to replace their existing air conditioners with star label equipment under their different programs. So all these are very joint and collective efforts, where international agencies, government agencies, private players, consulting organizations are together coming along to create an ecosystem that is very conducive of this change that we want to bring about. Because it's very important, it's very easy to get access to something, but it's also very important, I think, which the Western economies of, I think it's a very good thing that we are developing at this decade. Had we been a developed economy in 1960 or 1950, again, we would face the same problem that US faces today, that the people are already so used to air conditioning and everything that it's very difficult to let go. And when I speak to my family in the West, they always say that it's very difficult to let go of something once you already have it. So it's very good that we are starting at the right time and we have access, and the government is proactive. And COP26, we promised, the Prime Minister promised the country that we'd be targeting net zero by 2070. Obviously, it was everything gets criticized, and it should be, but that ambition of 2070 net zero is really being worked upon at very aggressive levels. And when I talk about behavioral change, the life as the life cycle, lifestyle for energy efficiency is another program that's being run by Ministry of Power, and expression of interest was invited for projects where people can submit in projects where they can impact lifestyle of people to bring about energy efficiency. And I think if such comprehensive thought process, and like Shruti ji were also mentioning, that the approach is very comprehensive, the things are very well thought of, but in such a large country, obviously things take time, and they should take time, because otherwise it won't be well thought of. And I think we're on the right path, and cooling is definitely going to seep its way deeper into the economy, into our lives. And I'm sure it will bring in comfort, it will bring in efficiency. And while ChatGPT continues to affect the IT industry, cooling is the ChatGPT of our building industry and the energy industry. So it's going to affect our lives in a deep way, positive or negative. I'm sure they're both ways, and I think we are on the right track so far. So thank you once again for inviting me, and look forward to many more such programs which are equally enlightening and filled with speakers of expertise in their own areas. Thank you once again, Gopal sir and Darshana ji and all the attendees.